Hello, everyone, and welcome to the RotoWire Fantasy Basketball Podcast. I am Mike Barner. He is Kirien Sprecher, and we come to you every Wednesday to give you the information that you need to win your fantasy basketball leagues. Kirien, how are you today?
I'm doing pretty good. Let's get into it.
Yeah, let's get into it. We have a big contract extension we're going to talk about first here. Brandon Ingram and the Toronto Raptors agreed to a 3-year, $120 million contract extension. This is on the heels of the Raptors acquiring Ingram from the Pelicans at the trade deadline. He was set to be a free agent after the season. They gave up some picks to get him, so it was important that they signed him to that contract extension. What do you think of this extension, Kirien?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the trade doesn't make any sense if they don't get the extension done right. So the extension makes sense because they made the trade. I'm still kind of questioning the trade in and of itself. They had to, go over one of the aprons to make this trade happen. You're not doing well this season, so that's kind of a risky move. But with that said, like a starting lineup, and I've been saying this before they acquired Ingram, right? Like the starting lineup for the Raptors can be intriguing. The problem is this season is they just haven't played enough games together. Quigley's missed time, Barrett's missed time, Pirtle's missed time, Barnes has missed time, and now you bring in Brandon Ingram, who's also missed a bunch of time this season. So I don't think it really makes sense. Like, we're not going to judge this trade or this extension on the last 30 games of this season, right? We will have to wait until next season to see, like, if this makes sense. And I think they can be in the picture. They can definitely be in the play-in picture. Can they hop into, actually being perennial playoff team? That'll make this extension and trade worth it. But we're going to have to wait a while to see if that happens because it's definitely not going to happen in the next 30 games.
I wonder if they should have just kept Anunoby and Siakam instead of replacing them with Barrett and Ingram. It's kind of like the same thing. But what you don't like about Ingram is he hasn't played in more than 64 games since his rookie season. The guy is always hurt. For fantasy, I think this is a major downgrade for Grady Dick. He now has no chance of starting when they're all completely healthy, which might be rare, but he's not someone that I'd be holding on to right now. And I also think it's a downgrade for RJ Barrett because Ingram will steal some of that usage rate. I mean, Grady Dick is a good three-point shooter, but he's not exactly a usage rate hog, but Ingram will be. What do you think, Kirien?
Yeah, I think you absolutely nailed it there. All of these guys are locked in now, that starting lineup through the 2026, 2027 season. So like they have a core in place and they're kind of like pushing all of their chips in with a bad team, right? Like normally you gradually add pieces. Your team is good. You start adding pieces. They're not great. They made a move and they're like, we're just gonna roll with this. I think Grady Dick can still have value because, like you said, he's not a usage hog. Theoretically, when you have all of these playmakers around him, he can sit in the corner and he can hit threes and, maybe he can get hot every now and then. But I think this is, like you said, a huge hit to Barrett. Like Barrett was kind of like the guy on the team, especially when Scotty was missing a lot of time earlier this season. He had a lot of high assist games. That's probably not going to happen when they're all healthy. But we keep saying when they're all healthy, like that still has to happen. So there's still a lot of room for leeway in fantasy for the next, couple of weeks.
All right, some good news. Kevin Durant returned yesterday against the Grizzlies. He played 43 minutes, so that's good news with injury concerns. He had 34 points, 5 blocks, 3 3-pointers. He became the 8th player in NBA history to score at least 30,000 points in his career. On the downside for that game, Bradley Beal was out again with his toe injury. He has missed 3 straight games. He will not play tonight against the Rockets. Yeah. So good news, Durant is back. Bad news, Bradley Beal is hurt again.
Yeah, KD looked very hungry to get 30K last night. I think going in, he only needed like 26 points or something, so that was obviously achievable and in the back of his mind. I saw him like driving a lot more than other games I've watched this season. He had a couple of nice and ones. Bradley Beal, he was playing well before this recent injury. Maybe the All-Star break can get him right. I think we're going to talk about Bull here in a second, but like the Suns are just kind of mixing things up here right before the All-Star break. So maybe you can read into it. Maybe it's just hey, we need a kick in the butt before the break, and then we'll take the break to analyze all of the things that we have, and then we'll come out of the break with a better plan. But I'm not really sure what's going on in Phoenix right now.
Yeah, you mentioned Bull. He got the start yesterday, his first start of the season. He played 30 minutes. Talk about a juicy fantasy stat line. 18 points, 14 rebounds, 2 steals, 4 blocks, and 3 3-pointers. Over the last 3 games, he's averaging 16.3 points, 8 rebounds, 3.7 blocks, and 2.7 3-pointers. Now, Bol is currently available in 76% of Yahoo leagues. Kirien, we got to add him, right?
Yeah, I think you got to. And, we talked about this a little bit like last week before the trade deadline. And it's like we were expecting more trades, maybe not more trades, but like players like moving and opening up a lot of opportunities. We thought we were going to see that with Dalton Connect and Mark Williams. That trade was rescinded. So I didn't really see a lot of, the big names moved, but like there's not necessarily like a guy that wasn't going to play in before and now is going to play a lot of minutes. So I think a lot of people like probably had stashes, we're stashing guys and like blah, blah, blah. You can probably drop some of those now, and Bol is the perfect pickup. But like I said, yesterday was kind of a roller coaster for Bol. Like the stats at the end of the night looked good. He started off hot. They were feeding him. Then he got really cold. He could hit the side of the backboard a couple times, and then he kind of finished strong. So I want to like say, yes, you can add him if you're desperate. Like this is probably the best target out there because of the potential, 11 blocks and 8 made 3-pointers over the last 3 games. Not many guys can do that, right? So there's a huge high upside here. But Ryan Dunn played only 5 minutes. Grayson Allen played only 20. Ty Washington is in the rotation now. I think this is just them kind of like throwing everything against the wall before the break so they can get stuff on tape. I like what Bol's doing, but I don't necessarily know if it's like winning basketball and maybe like there's just a lot of empty stats there. So I want to add him here, but I'm not saying you can just like, oh yeah, add him here and then you can start him for the next month. You add him here and things could definitely change coming out of the All-Star break. He could be back to the bench, back to playing 10, 15 minutes, and then he's not worthy of fantasy roster ability.
Yeah, I agree with you. You got to add him right now simply because the upside is there. But this is not a Khalil Ware situation. Yeah. This is not a guy that you add now and you feel great about it for the rest of the season. Bol could be great for 10 games. And then all of a sudden, like you said, he's playing 10 minutes. The Suns have to win every game. So if he struggles for a couple of games, they're going to change up rotations again. So he's someone to add now, but not someone to feel great about for the rest of the season. Maybe you're adding him to replace Daniel Gafford. We got some bad news on Daniel Gafford. He is going to be reevaluated in 2 weeks. The dreaded reevaluation timeline, which we hate. The Mavericks are basically down to Kyler Kelly at center. Yes, Kyler Kelly. Look him up. That is an actual player. I did not make this up. That is who they have left at center. So we're going to see a lot of small lineups for the Mavericks going forward. So who's the biggest beneficiary here? PJ Washington, maybe Max Christie, maybe some Najee Marshall. What do you think, Kirien?
Yeah, so, just to reiterate your point, PJ Washington, he's missed 4 of the last 5. He's day-to-day. Dwight Powell will be sidelined through the break. Caleb Martin is going to probably be sidelined after the break. Daniel Gafford probably won't be back until beginning of March, mid-March. Anthony Davis probably won't be back till mid-March, maybe late March. Derek Lively's out till early April. Like, this is DEFCON 1. Maybe is DEFCON 1 good or is that the bad one?
I don't know. You're way past me.
It's bad, right? It's bad. You mentioned Najee Marshall. I think that's like the safest pickup here. He's already proven that when he gets minutes, he can rack up stats pretty quickly. Kyler Kelly, he played 34 minutes at the beginning of February in a blowout loss to Cleveland. Other than that, it's kind of like 15 minutes, is a good game for him. OMP, Maximus Prosper, he played 34 minutes in Monday's 1-point loss to the Kings. He could be a wild card here. I like his versatility on defense a little bit more than Kelly, so maybe they roll small and roll with OMP. But I think Najee Marshall is just like the safest play here, especially if you're not in a super deep league. Those other guys, Kelly and OMP, are kind of deeper league guys. I think Najee can still have value in like a 12-team league with all of these front court injuries in Dallas.
The guy I'm adding is Max Christie. He's available in 70% of Yahoo leagues. He's averaging 17 points, 5.3 rebounds, 3 assists, and 2.8 3-pointers over 33 minutes per game since he was acquired by the Mavericks. They're going to play small. I think we'll see a lot of PJ Washington at the 5. They like Christie. He's playing a lot. He's producing. There's no reason for them to cut his playing time. So while he's not a center or a forward, because they have to shift one of their forwards over to center, I think they'll play more guard lineups, and Christie can defend multiple positions, which helps his cause. So he's probably the guy I like the most.
And we've talked about Dallas a lot this season. Luka was hurt early. Kyrie missed some time. Now Luka's gone. We talked about like Dinwiddie and all Jaden Hardy and all of these guys. And Quentin Grimes before he but Max Christie is my favorite of all of those guys. I think he's a higher floor, maybe not a higher ceiling guy, but he's a higher floor guy, and he can, hit 4 or 5 threes in a game that can really boost your fantasy thing. So I like that. Like you said, he's not necessarily going to be directly replacing those front court minutes, but they're going to have to bump a forward to center. So Christie is still going to get all that PT.
Nico Harris might need Christie to play all 48 minutes. So the fans, we can point to Max Christie. Look at this guy. He's awesome.
This is who we actually wanted in the trade.
We've got defense. We've got versatility. We've got Max Christie. Okay. So some bad injury news. Again, LaMelo Ball. He's out against the Magic tonight with an ankle injury. He's missed 8. This is going to make the 8th missed game out of the last 12 for the Hornets. He has a history of ankle issues. He has played in 51 or fewer games in 3 of his previous 4 seasons in the league. What are you doing with LaMelo Ball, Kirien?
I mean, you're probably not going to get return on investment at this point, right? And you can't drop him. So I think you just got to hold him. It's even if they're going to tank, obviously try to trade him. But like, you're not going to get anything that even resembles like equal return, especially if LaMelo was like playing. Ball left Monday's loss in Brooklyn after only 10 minutes. That was his second appearance over Charlotte's last 8 games. He's missed 18 of the Hornets' 51 games this season. The Hornets are 13-38, 8 games back of the 10th seed. Like this is not great. Brandon Miller, Trey Mann are already ruled out for the season, so I see no reason for Charlotte to bring him back and rush him. I'm sure he'll like play occasionally, do the whole Embiid thing, play a couple games, take a couple games off. But at this point, like, obviously shop him, but like, you're not going to get anything. Like, you probably couldn't even get like Austin Reeves. Like, that would be like a fair trade analytically in my mind. But like, no one's going to trade you Austin Reeves. You're not going to get a top 50 player for LaMelo Ball right now.
It's so depressing. I have him in a very important league in the same team that I also had Jalen Johnson. So I really need LaMelo Ball. And like you said, if he gets healthy hopefully the All-Star break will help. But this guy has a history of ankle issues. He's always hurt, and the team has no reason to push him to play. So if he gets healthy, he plays like 2-3 games in a row. He's going to put up monster stat lines. Then you shop him. I would definitely not try to trade him before the All-Star break. Once the All-Star break passes, hopefully he plays a few games, and then you shop him and you cross your fingers and you hope what you can get. And we're going to talk about that in our next segment. Some players on bad teams and what to do with them. But before we do that, let's talk about a couple more important news here. Alperen Sengun questionable with a back injury tonight against the Suns. He played just 3 minutes Sunday before leaving with those back spasms. Doesn't seem like a serious injury. Probably the All-Star break will help him here. Wanted to bring this up because if he is out tonight and you're looking for streaming options or DFS options, maybe Steven Adams, a blast from the past. Steven Adams, he has at least 10 rebounds in 3 of his last 5 games. Could we get a Steven Adams start tonight, Kirien? That'd be fun to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. Jeff Green, he directly replaced Sengun when he left the game, but then you saw a lot of Jock Landale. Steven Adams wasn't cleared to play that game. It was the second night of a back-to-back. He's going to be this Wednesday, Thursday is also a back-to-back set. So like if Steven Adams plays tonight and Sengun misses, then Steven Adams will probably rest tomorrow. Like you said, probably not a huge deal for Sengun. He'll probably sit one of these next 2 games because, like I said, it's a back-to-back. He recently missed 3 games to a calf issue, but this is back, so like not really any relation there. I think you bite the bullet here as a Sengun owner. You only get 1 start out of him over the next 2 games, and then you hope that the week off has him back to 100% for the stretch run.
A center that we are more concerned about his injury, Deandre Ayton left Monday's game against the Nuggets with a calf injury. He's ruled out for tonight's game against the Nuggets again. He had to be helped up the floor. It was a non-contact injury. You do not like to see those. With him leaving that game early, Donovan Clint played 21 minutes. He had 21 points, 7 rebounds, and a block. The Trailblazers haven't given us any concrete timeline of when they expect Ayton to return. they might not because the All-Star break's coming up. But clinging here, he was one of our favorite stashes. That kind of died down once no trade. Even Robert Williams wasn't traded, let alone Ayton. But is clinging back on our fantasy radars, Kieran?
Yeah, absolutely. The same reasons apply. Not necessarily a tanking injury here. Maybe it was a real injury, like you said, non-contact, kind of worrisome. But the same, it still applies, right? All of our logic still applies. If Klingen's going to get minutes down the stretch, he's definitely an add. He's available in a lot of leagues. He can soak up those rebounds. Just a traditional big man. You're not going to get many 3-pointers or a lot of points, but can high field goal percentage, blocks, and rebounds. And it's still the tanking thing is still real. I know the Blazers kind of went on a hot streak there for a couple weeks, but they're still, you have to make moves to get into the play-in tournament. And if that dies down after the All-Star break, Klingen's going to get more and more PT.
Another big man to talk about, Clint Capela, is off the injury report for tonight's game against the Knicks. He had missed 8 straight games due to a personal issue. Now, he was benched before he was out with that issue. The Hawks were sellers at the trade deadline. They're clearly looking for the future. So while Clint Capela is coming back, we are not worried about Okongwu, right, Kirien? We're still okay if you have him?
Yep, you said it. That's all I had. Capela had been benched before he left the team. So he's going to come back. He's probably going to stay in that bench role, and Okongwu is going to stay as a starter. Maybe he loses a couple minutes here and there, but I think Okongwu's value is going to remain the same. That definitely isn't going to go up, but not going to go down enough where we have to worry about him.
So now that the trade deadline's passed, we know what the tanking teams' rosters are going to look like down the stretch. We're going to talk about what to do with some of the veterans on those rosters for fantasy basketball moving forward. But before that, here's a word from our friends at Edge Boost. Have you ever had your debit card declined or had to call your bank at 3 a.m. in Vegas? Edge Boost is the first consumer-facing online bank dedicated to the gaming industry. There are numerous benefits to using Edge Boost. $250,000 per day in debt deposits, unlimited withdrawals, cashbacks on sports betting, DFS, and sweeps, 100% approval for all gaming activity. There's financial segmentation for discretion and responsible gambling. It's compatible today for prediction markets, iCasino, DFS, sports betting, lottery, brick and mortar casinos, horse racing, and sweeps. No transaction reviews or account freezes. Visit edgeboost.bet today and use promo code ROTOPOD. That's promo code ROTOPOD. All right, Kerry. Now, we're going to talk about some of these bad teams, these tanking teams, and what we're going to do with the veterans on those teams. We already talked about LaMelo Ball, so we're going to skip him here when we talk about the Hornets. But what are you doing with the duo of Miles Bridges and Mark Williams?
I'm trying to trade Miles Bridges right now. He's definitely capable of putting up big games. He's kind of been semi-reliable compared to the rest of the Hornets this season. But I'm worried about what his availability will look like in a month, right? So maybe you can trade him to a desperate fantasy manager right now and be like, look, this guy's giving you production. You can get him and then maybe take someone back that will be more available later in the season. Mark Williams, probably a drop, honestly, at this point. Failing his physical doesn't necessarily mean that he's not going to play for Charlotte, right? Like Charlotte already thought he was healthy. He was playing for Charlotte. But I think the Hornets are going to be tanking. They're probably going to want more minutes for Diabate, who is playing well. And then Nurkic's presence messes with things too. I'm not sure Nurkic is going to play 25 minutes at this point. But even if he plays 12, 15 minutes, that leaves Mark Williams at best playing 20 to 25. And you really need 25 to 28 if you're going to get strong fantasy production. So in a 10, 12 team league, I'm probably dropping Mark Williams. Anything 14, 16, maybe you hold depending on what's available.
Yeah, the Mark Williams situation is pretty crazy because, they issued that statement after the trade didn't go through that they were so happy to have Mark Williams, but then they put in a thing where they're disputing the Lakers failing its physical. So it's like, we're so happy to have you back, but wait, we really want this trade to go through. So Mark Williams was not on the injury report. It was released yesterday that he was on the injury report, but then it came out that he wasn't going to play. So
yeah,
there's no injury concern right now. It's just this is an awkward situation. The Hornets are still trying to force this trade through. There is no way this trade's going to get forced through. So Mark Williams is going to be on the Hornets. Does he want to play there? Are his feelings hurt? What's going to happen here? So if you have Mark Williams and you can find someone in your league that still really likes his upside, trade him, but he's not going to have much value. And I actually am okay with holding on to Miles Bridges just because I think they're going to lose a ton of games whether he plays or not.
Yeah, that's fair.
Because I think LaMelo Ball is not going to play, and Mark Williams might not play. So then you got like Alfred Payton and KJ Simpson and all Moussa Diabate and all these terrible guys. Somebody's got to shoot. So they can just throw Bridges out there. He's averaged almost 22 points, 7.7 rebounds, 3.9 assists, and 2.2 3-pointers over the last 16 games. If he does get benched at some point, I think maybe we're looking at like the end of March and into April as opposed to now. So you might be able to get at least a solid month or more of what he's doing now. And I think that's worth holding on to. So I'm okay with Bridges. So now we're going to move on to the Nets. It looked like they were going to be big sellers. They got rid of Schroeder. They got rid of Finney-Smith. And then pump the brakes. Nobody else got traded. So we've got D'Angelo Russell, Cam Johnson, and Nick Claxton. What are we doing here with these three guys, Kirien?
I'm probably holding Russell and Claxton. I don't think they're going to draw enough attention, enough, return on investment. At this point, Russell has been a top 100 player over the last month, and I don't think in, A category leagues, and I don't think you're going to get a better player for that, for him in a trade, right? Just because of, the stigma around D'Angelo Russell. Claxton has been getting better. He's 124 in 8 category leagues on the season. He's 91 over the last month and 71 over the last 14 days. So he's producing better than what you'd get in a return for a trade. So kind of like your point with Miles Bridges, like, these two are probably going to play a lot over the next 3-4 weeks, and you just kind of soak as much production as you can out of them with the understanding that like maybe at the end of the season they're going to get benched. But you're not going to get a return on investment for them right now, in my opinion. Cameron Johnson is a little more interesting. He's been great this season, and someone, if you're in a category league and they're desperate for threes, you can kind of like boost his value a little bit. Like this is a sharpshooter. Russell and Claxton, like maybe back in the day, Claxton was a great shot blocker. Right now, like he's not an elite shot blocker where you're going to like, does that make sense? He's not going to like turn the narrative there. Cameron Johnson, like someone who needs threes, is like, this is an elite 3-point shooter. He can give me elite 3-point production. So maybe you can kind of like sell while you still can on Cameron Johnson. But I think hold Russell and Claxton. They're solid players. You're not going to really get a better player for them. Cameron Johnson, maybe you could get a better player if you find the right trade partner.
Yeah, I don't want any of these three guys on my teams, any of them. Cameron Johnson and Nick Claxton, I feel a little bit better about just because they're younger. They're signed long-term, so they're actually part of the Nets' future. D'Angelo Russell is going to be a free agent at the end of the season. Now, Ben Simmons leaving helps for sure because that takes one guy out of the minutes mix. I'm more worried about Russell than anybody else, but it's not like you're going to get it. Like you said, you're not going to get anything for him. If you can, great. Pull the trigger and make the trade. But if not, there's not really a whole lot you can do. Just hopefully you have him in a daily lineup league.
Yes,
and you can put him in and out during rest days and that kind of stuff. But there's not a lot of upside with any of the three guys, unfortunately. So now we move on to the Pelicans. Only one guy I really want to talk about here, and that's CJ McCollum. Over the last 10 games, McCollum has averaged 24.4 points, 4.1 rebounds, 3.7 assists, and 3.5 3-pointers. That is excellent fantasy production. Do you feel good about having CJ McCollum on any of your fantasy rosters down the stretch, or are you looking to get out now while you can?
So similar to your stats from the last 10 games, last year from March 16th through the end of the regular season, McCollum averaged 23 points, 5 assists, 4 boards, and a steal. He had 45, 43, 94 shooting splits. So pretty similar to what he's doing right now. He appeared in 29 straight games to end the season. However, the Pelicans were fighting for a play-in spot. They finished as the 8th seed, right? This season is completely different. They're last place in the West. They have one more loss than the Jazz. I'm trading McCollum if you can. Listen, rattle off all of the stats Mike said about the last 10 games. Rattle off the stats I said about last season. And then just leave out the part where the Pelicans were actually a playoff team last season when you're trying to make your trade, your pitch to your trade partner here. Like McCollum is playing really good. This is the perfect sell high moment. We don't expect him to be playing at the end of the regular season, at the end of, the fantasy playoffs. Sell while you can, for sure.
I am okay with holding on to CJ McCollum. Under no circumstances will I trade him for a discount. If you can get comparable value back, like you said, I'm all for it. because then you remove that risk of a possible tanky situation where he doesn't play. But this is not a LaMelo Ball situation for me where you're going to trade him for a discount and you're okay with it. I would want something comparable back because he is one Zion Williamson injury away from having a massive usage rate. He's already playing really well and scoring a lot with Zion playing most of the games. I mean, this could be down to if Zion gets hurt or is rested, it's CJ McCollum, it's Trey Murphy, and then it's like Messi, Jordan Hawkins. These aren't big-time scorers, so he could be really busy down the stretch. I'm okay shopping him, but do not, under any circumstances, trade him for a discount. Now, Kirien, the Utah Jazz, I don't know what's going on with the Utah Jazz. They didn't trade any of their key veterans away. Jordan Clarkson's still there. John Collins still there. Colin Sexton still there. What are we doing now? Colin Sexton is out right now, which has helped things a little bit. But Kirien, what are we doing with all these guys? There's a lot of guys there on a bad team.
Yeah, I mean, we probably talked about this group, at least the Jazz, every show.
Yes.
You should have already been trying to trade these guys. If you haven't, pause the podcast right now. Go send out some trades. The Jazz are 12-40, 15 games out of a play-in spot. Without even mentioning like rest games and injury absences yet, you already have like Clarkson and Sexton taking a hit with Collier playing well. Keontae George, maybe he's playing a little okay off the bench, but still not like you got to go out and add him. And then you add in the fact of all of these missed games. Markkanen has missed 8 of the last 19 games. Collins has missed 17 of the last 25 games. Clarkson has missed 23 games on the season, played in 29. And then Sexton, 4 straight absences. He's considered day-to-day. Out of the All-Star break, he'll probably be fine. I think Sexton is probably the only, is the safest option out of those 4 guys. But I'm trying to trade all of them.
The guard situation is a mess. Collier is the only one I feel even decent about because I know he'll give you assists. But Clarkson and Sexton, the thing that we're already seeing, none of these guys, none of these veterans, Sexton, Clarkson, Lauri Markkanen, John Collins, even Walker Kessler, they're not playing both games of back-to-back sets from here on out. The Jazz have been resting these guys for at least one half of back-to-back sets for the last 3 or 4 weeks already. So just know right now that those guys are not going to play. So if you're looking at this, the Jazz have a 4-game week. This is great. If there's a back-to-back set in there, you're not getting 4 games out of Lauri Markkanen. You're not getting 4 games out of John Collins or Walker Kessler. They're playing 3 at best. So you got to keep that in mind. Believe it or not, the guy I actually feel the best about out of those veteran group is John Collins. Over the last 6 games, he's averaging 18.8 points, 7.5 rebounds, 1.7 blocks, and 1.5 three-pointers. He is not helping them win games, okay? They're not winning games because John Collins is out there, but he's giving you stats, okay? He's a good stats, bad team guy. He's not going to impact winning. He's still not playing both half back-to-back sets, but I don't think they look at that like, John Collins is the guy we're going to rest for the final 20 games because he's going to win us games. He's not. I don't feel great about any of them, but if there's one that I feel the best about, it's him. Now, final team, the Washington Wizards. Jordan Poole. Wait a minute. The Washington Wizards, they traded Malcolm Brogdon, right? No, didn't trade Malcolm Brogdon. They did trade Valanciunas, so they at least got rid of him. But not only did they not trade Malcolm Brogdon, they brought in another veteran in Chris Middleton. So what are we doing with Jordan? We're not going to talk about Malcolm Brogdon because there's nothing there. But Jordan Poole and the newly acquired Chris Middleton, what are we doing with those two, Kirien?
I think you got to hold Jordan Poole. You're kind of similar to your point, like with John Collins. Is Jordan Poole a winning player? You could probably leave him out there for 35 minutes and still be confident with your tanking. Chris Middleton, he might be a drop in a lot of leagues. I don't know how much playing time he's going to get. If I was the Wizards, I'd rather have Bud Carrington, Bilal Coulibaly, Keyshawn George, those types of guys get minutes ahead of Chris Middleton. So it'll be interesting. We'll see if Malcolm Brogdon and Chris Middleton play a lot. I'm not expecting that. So I'm not. I would probably drop Chris Middleton right now, but I would be fine if he was a hold. And then Jordan Poole, you just got to hold him. No one's going to give you a return on investment for him just because of the stigma behind Jordan Poole.
Middleton is a definite drop for me. This is going to sound crazy. If you want to drop Chris Middleton for Bull, go for it. Yeah. I'm okay with that because at least you're getting there is zero upside with Chris Middleton. If you think, now they said they wanted to keep him because they want to have a veteran to help lead the young guys. If you think he's going to play 30 minutes a game on the Washington Wizards down the stretch, there's no chance. He's going to play 20, 25 minutes a game. He's not going to play both half of back-to-back sets. He's going to rest lots of time. We might not see him for the final month of the season. So he's a drop for me. No problem there. Now, Jordan Poole, his value was up this season because he had improved his efficiency a little bit. Well, guess what? Over the last 10 games, he's shooting 37.9% from the field. That stinks. Now, here is a guy that I would be more than happy trading Jordan Poole for right now if you can do it. And you might actually be able to sell the other guy in this because it's a big name and a lesser name. Christian Braun. What do you think about that, Kirien? You're getting a lot less scoring upside, but Brown's averaging almost 15 points, 5 rebounds, 2.1 assists. He gets you a 3. He's shooting just under 58% from the field. You think you could sell that to the guy that owns Brown in your league? Here's Jordan Poole. More points, more assists. Take him.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I think you could make a pitch there. Acquiring Brown, I would just be worried about Russell Westbrook coming back. Westbrook was playing pretty well, but Brown he was solid early in the season before Westbrook came, and then Westbrook kind of pushed him to the side a little bit. But I think Brown is a great player, and I think he's going to play a lot of minutes regardless of Westbrook. But I'd just be a little hesitant if I was the guy acquiring Brown because of Westbrook's status. But I think that's a fair trade in looking at it from an objective viewpoint. But it's a risky move. I feel like you probably have to have 2 managers that are on the outside of the playoffs looking in to get a thing like that done.
All right, now we've probably got time to answer a few questions here, but before we do that, we've got a word from our good friends at Pool Genius. Want to win more in your golf, March Madness, and football pools? Pool Genius gives you data-driven picks and strategies to outsmart the competition. With over a decade of analytics and historical data, Pool Genius is the only site dedicated exclusively to helping people win sports pools, with Pool Genius users winning 3 times more often than expected. RotoWire listeners get exclusive offers. Visit poolgenius.com/RotoWire for up to 55% off or start a 4-day free trial. That's poolgenius.com/RotoWire. Now, we have some time to answer some questions, and this will also give you some time to call everybody into the room for your favorite segment. Maybe you went into the office today. You're not at home. You don't want to get Uncle Bob and Aunt Janice, but maybe you want to get some good graces here with your boss. Hey, boss, I got some data here that you're going to love to hear from these 2 guys that are the best. So before we do that, Kirien, let's answer a couple questions from the chat.
All right. So starting it off, we had John before the show ask, do you envision a scenario where Vucevic becomes droppable in a 12-team, 8-category league? His usage and efficiency are plummeting, and the possibility of him sitting games for a tanking Bulls team. I think, yes, that last point is fair to make. But, if you ask anybody in the Bulls front office, they're playing for that playing spot, right? So tanking probably it won't be super heinous. I get your concerns about efficiency here and usage. Vucevic was fantastic to start the season. He's still a pretty solid player when you're looking at his season-long rankings. Over the last 30 days, he's dropped a little bit. Over the last 14, he's dropped even more. But he's still a top 80 player right now, even in that 14-game stretch. So I don't think he's a droppable quite yet, depending on who's available. Maybe someone made a horrendous drop early in the season, and there's a guy sitting on waivers. But I'm not dropping Vooch right now. How about you, Mike?
Completely agree. I have an article, I think it was just published before the show on RotoWire.com today, talking about some buy low, sell high, and hold guys. And Vucevic is a hold for me. Yeah. The Bulls are not tanking. We all want them to tank. Everybody wants them to tank. I'm sorry, they're not tanking. So Vucevic is going to play plenty down the stretch. He stinks on defense, but he's still a good offensive center, which is all we care about for fantasy. So there's no way I'm dropping him. No way.
All right. Cool. Paul says, good morning, guys. Which of these players should I drop to add Diabate, Quentin Grimes, Tari Eason, or maybe even Alex Caruso, Nick Smith, Nemhard, Desumo, and Hayes, or maybe Pinky P? This is interesting. A lot of names here. It depends on what type of league you're in. I would say that Caruso probably has the lowest upside of any of these guys in this group. And then, we'll see what happens with Hayes. Tari Eason has been sitting out a lot of back-to-backs. So I think that would probably be my order of operations there with Caruso just because he has the lowest ceiling. Eason and then Hayes. How about you?
I like Caruso too as the drop there. You got a lot of drop options here. Caruso's a drop option. I think Grimes is also a drop option. And also I just want to say I like the nickname Pinky P for Paul George because he hurt his pinky. So that's a good one, Paul. I like that.
But Paul George has probably been playing the worst. Paul George has been a worse player than Nick Smith over the last week. I said I wasn't
about that, Kirien.
I wasn't going to
overreact.
Don't
you wait. I got something good on that, Kirien.
All right. Patrick Birchfield said, help me out. Should I give away Hartenstein and Barrett for Zubac and Asar Thompson? We had another Asar Thompson question here too. This, I kind of like it. Look, like Barrett is on Toronto. They've struggled to stay healthy. They might, with this Brandon Ingram trade, they're going for it. Probably not. Zubac and Asar are both on, competitive teams. They're both playing well. I think Hartenstein Barrett is still like the higher upside here, though. What about you, Mike?
Very close. I think Zubac is an upgrade over Hartenstein because Chet Holmgren is back. So you got enough. But I think Barrett is also significantly better than Asar Thompson for fantasy purposes. If you want to make it, I'm okay with it. It's close, but I think you've got a higher floor on the Hartenstein side than you do the Zubac side.
I thought I saw another Asar question, but maybe Asar, is he a long-term pickup? Like, yes, like if you can pick him up right now, absolutely. Depending, like, if it's a 10-team league, maybe not, but a 12-team or deeper, definitely worth the pickup. He's playing really well. The Pistons are playing well with him playing well. He's not quite Amon. Amon has a higher upside because I think Amon's a better playmaker, but Asar does all of the defensive stats and he can rebound just as well. Big Gucci John says, should I trade Cat for Amon Thompson and Harden points league? Look, anytime you get 2 for 1, the value is probably in the 2 players, but you have to be starting Amon and Harden. Like, you have an open, like if you're starting Cat and, Tyus Jones, then yeah, Amon Thompson and Harden gives you a higher upside because that's 2 solidified starters. But if you aren't starting Amon and Harden every week, then you got to roll with Cat. Does that make sense?
I agree. I like the 2 for 1 if it fits with your lineup. Points league, so that's what makes Amon Thompson even more impressive there.
Absolutely. All right, there's a lot of good ones, so I'm trying to get through here. We answered this kind of in the question. Mike thinks that Max Christie is going to play a lot more because they're going to move PJ Washington center. I've dropped Missy and picked up Klingon. Missy is still like solid. I think that's probably, a pretty even trade. I think Klingon gives you way more blocks in a category league. So I kind of like the upside there.
Yeah, you're chasing upside with that one.
All right. Chinchilla said, let's play stream ad drop 2 for each. Okongwu, Buzelis, Bol, Ware, Keontae, Max Christie, Vassell, Conley, and Grimes.
I'm sweating looking at this one.
Yes. So we need to pick two for each. Okay.
2 stream, 2 ad, and 2 drop.
Okay. So
you gotta have a Okongwu on your team.
Yes.
That's number 1.
I'm dropping Conley right away. Probably
Conley and Grimes. Those
are
the 2 guys I would drop.
Yeah.
Those are the 2 guys I would drop. And then the 2 guys, Okongwu's got to be a start. I would probably start
Where?
Yeah, probably Ware. And then Buzelis and Christie would be the guys I'd be streaming in along with Devin Vassell. I mean, if you need to drop Keontae, could be a drop too.
Perfect. I like that.
Let's do one more, Kirien.
All right, sounds good. So we had a couple, similar questions: Klingon or Bol, and Diabate or Klingon. So how would you rank Klingon, Bol, and Diabate right now? Those are probably top 3 big guys on the waiver wire right now.
Diabate would be number 1 because I feel he has the clearer path to a more significant role. I can't pick Bol. I'm sorry. I'll do Klingon. I can't. Klingon is a guy that can if Ayton misses time, if we find out tomorrow that Ayton's going to be out a month or a month and a half, then Klingon is a surefire guy I would add. Bol, he could do awesome one game and then he could play 5 minutes the next. So I would do Diabate, Klingon, and then Bol. How about you?
I think that's totally fair. Maybe just for devil's advocate or just for fun, I'll put Klingon ahead of Bol ahead of Klingon just because you get those 3-pointers, and that changes everything. But definitely Bol is the riskiest option here. He's played like 3 games, 20 plus minutes, and now we're hyping him up. And in 2 weeks from now it could be 5. So I think we can agree that these 3 big guys are probably like the top 3 centers that are available right now. Anywhere you can, if you can add one of them, you should. Probably don't need to add multiple guys though.
Well, thank you everyone for the questions. We appreciate you following along and listening to the show and watching the show here on YouTube. If you don't subscribe to the RotoWire Fantasy Basketball Show on YouTube, make sure you do, please. That helps us out. Now, it's time for the What Was That stat lines of the week. Kirien, you are up first.
All right, so we've kind of tried to avoid the Bulls at all costs today. If you're a regular on the show, you know we're both Bulls fans, and last night was atrocious. We didn't want to talk about it, but I couldn't come up with any better What Was That stats. Last night, the Bulls started 0 for 17 from 3. What was that? They finished the first half 1 for 23 from deep. You put me and you in a gym and you give us 33-pointers right now, I think we could make more than one of them. They made some in the second half, but still just an absolutely atrocious shooting night from the Bulls, who are still competing. Don't let anyone tell you not.
This, I want to be very clear. This is Kirien's What Was That stat line of the week. This is not the Bulls Minute. The Bulls Minute has been postponed. We can't have a Bulls Minute in this show after that debacle last night. I watched that. I turned it off in the third quarter, okay? I'm not that much of a glutton for punishment. But I watched the whole first half and most of the way through the third quarter. My son was already in bed. My daughter and my wife had music class, so I was watching. It was disgusting. There was no effort. After they started missing 3-pointers, they were alligator arming it. Everything was short, hitting the front of the rim. There was no effort on defense. There was no hustle on loose balls. Billy Donovan's got his head in his hands. I went to the Bulls-Celtics game last season. I was sitting like 3 rows behind the Bulls bench. My wife got me awesome tickets for Christmas. They looked so disinterested in that game. Nikola Vucevic got his head down. Nobody's high-fiving. Nobody's talking to each other. I got those same vibes watching that game last night. This stinks. I can't take it anymore, Karen. There is no Bulls Minute on the show today. None. Zip, zilch, nada. All right. My What Was That stat line of the week? We got to go back to February 7th. Paul George. He played 30 minutes, okay? He scored 14 points. If that wasn't bad enough for Paul George, only scoring 14 points in the game, he had 1 rebound and no assists. What was that? 1 rebound and no assists over 30 minutes for Paul George. He only attempted 10 shots in that game. His usage rate is down to 24.4%, which is his lowest mark since the 2012-13 season. 2012-13. My gosh, that was a long time ago. Across 4 games since returning from injury, Paul George is averaging 12.3 points, 2.5 rebounds, and 2.5 assists. That stinks. Now, on the plus side, he is averaging 2.3 steals and 2.3 3-pointers, so he is helping a little bit there. But with Embiid missing so much time, the 76ers need Paul George to step up. He's done the opposite. He has taken replacing Tobias Harris too literally. We don't want you to be Tobias Harris. We want you to replace him and be an upgrade. You have to shoot the ball. We have to actually notice that you are on the floor. Paul George has averaged at least 21.5 points per game in a season 10 times in his career. Paul George, shoot the ball, get a rebound, get an assist. 1 rebound and 0 assists in 30 minutes. This is not Tony Snell. This is Paul George. What was that, Paul George? Terrible.
I absolutely love it. Pinky P out here,
Pinky
making
P,
What
Paul
Was That.
giving us the great nickname. That's his new nickname, Pinky P. Paul, we love it. Thank you for giving us that nickname.
If you've been tuning into this show all season, you'd think we'd be paid by like Norman Powell or something. How much we talk up Norman Powell? How much we crap
Do
on
it, Kirien.
All right, I just got one more point before we get out of here. The whole Mark Williams trade rescinded thing. We've already shown our love for Seinfeld on this show. With George getting fired and then just coming back to work and pretending like nothing happened. I haven't seen one clip on Twitter about that or X. Thanks, Elon. Someone's got to clip that up because it's perfect. Just put Mark Williams' head on George Costanza rolling back into the office and thinking like nothing's wrong.
Same thing with Dalton Connect. Hey, guys,
Yeah.
where are we going? We're going to win the West. Woo! Here I am. Give me my 5 minutes off the bench.
I love
Ready.
it. I love it.
Well, with that, that is the end of today's RotoWire Fantasy Basketball Podcast. Thank you, everyone, for listening to the show. Good luck with your fantasy teams this week. May it stay healthy, and may you come away with some wins.
Good luck, everybody. Have a good one.